And then I watched Demetrius and the Gladiators. 1954. CinemaScope, which wasn't the first one because the Robe was the first one. And they just went on and on and on. It wasn't written by Lloyd C. Douglas, who wrote The Robe. Because he wrote The Robe, book came out, book was instant success, Many years later they managed to make a movie out of it. And they also, at that time, they got Victor Mature to play Demetrius, specifically with in mind that they were going to do a follow-up movie, which was very unusual in those days. I was reading up on the various references to it, is that basically public sentiment at that time was their sequels are not a good idea, don't do them because they usually suck. So nobody was doing sequels, but for some reason they decided to do this, and I haven't found any reference as to why. But Philip Dunne wrote the script for The Robe, and he also wrote Demetrius and the Gladiators, and it says based on a character created in The Robe. They do reference Marcellus and Diana several times. They make a kind of a cameo appearance at the beginning, because that's just a piece from the original The Robe movie, and then they pan up, which they must have taken that shot, kind of, because film magic, you can do it at any time, of course, but they pan up when they walk out, having just given the robe away to the Marcipor, I suppose their housemaster or something like that, the head of household, who is also a Christian, and says, for the big fisherman, this is what Diana does, and so the robe's going to continue somewhere. And at that moment, Demetrius is already way rescued. He's on his way out of Rome, and he is in need of a good long sick bed, which of course he's not going to get in this movie. And then they pan up, and you see this set of people, and they are, turns out, which takes me a long time to figure out, Claudius, so Caligula's uncle, his wife, Messalina, and you can immediately tell from Susan Hayward, who plays Messalina, that she is going to be a bitch. Like, one of those bitches that you go, yeah. It is cleverly written, but it's kind of like, I can appreciate the cleverness in retrospect. When I was watching it the first time, I was like, what are they doing? Why are they doing it? Because it's called Demetrius and the Gladiators. Well, okay, so in The Robe, the first scene that we see Demetrius at the marketplace, he is run away. He is trying to escape his captors, which is, of course, never going to happen because he's in the middle of the big marketplace in Rome. It's just that he was doing it to make a point. And then this market guy comes up and he says, "Dog's meat." Keep saying that about slaves and stuff. So, set him off as a gladiator. That's a hint to this movie. So everything was done with really thoughtful planning. And then the question is, did it work? So they wanted to make a movie about gladiators. In 1954, 3 or 2, let's assume they were writing this in 1952, it was not on. You were in the height of the Hays Code era. You couldn't do anything that was like opulent and just for spectacle alone. So let's do The Robe. Oh, we have an interesting character here. Can we then know something with gladiators later? Because he's not dead at the end of this movie, so we can use him. So that's how I think it went. Because who doesn't want to see gladiators? Who doesn't?
Do we get gladiators?
We get lots of gladiators. It pays on the selling point. You want gladiators, we will give you gladiators. You want fight spectacle, you want carnage, we will give you carnage. You want lions. Could have been tigers. I'm not sure that I know the difference.
Lions and tigers.
They didn't have big manes, so it was either female lions or it was tigers. But anyway, You know, we're gonna get that. So that's yay. Go watch it. Have fun. But the reason for these movies was the religious bit, right? So what we also need Peter. And he shows up as played by Michael Rennie, same as in the Robe movies. So now we've got Victor Mature as Demetrius. He can go off, have the adventure, whatever he wants to. We got new characters, Messalina and Claudius. And we have Caligula. And we didn't get enough of him in the first movie. So if you feel the same, by all means, this is the movie for you. Anne Bancroft as Paula, I don't know. I'm reading the cast list for a moment. Debra Paget as Lucia. Lucia is important because it is Demetrius' love interest. I did a review on the Robe, and my conclusion was that basically everybody is the age, well, is close enough to the age that they're playing. Except that Victor Mature, who plays Demetrius, is supposed to be 15 years younger than he is. Because he's 40 plus, maybe 41-ish at that point. And that worked for the Robe. It's fine. He can be 40. You'd ask questions as to where is his wife and kids, but they were probably killed when he got captured. But now I'm like, wait, you have Debra Paget. I didn't look up her age. I really should. Maybe we can have it here. In 1953 or 4, playing Lucia as his love interest. Well, but she's a young girl. She is not a girl, you know. Certainly she can be 18 plus, but she can't be 25 plus. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. We'll see here. So now I'm thinking he is the age that he was supposed to be that he is in the book, which is about 26-ish, and or maybe even a little younger. 19 plus 7 plus 1. You do the math. 28. I don't see a 40-pluser with an 18-year-old. I really, not even in 1954 for a Roman era movie. So, but it's Victor Mature, so we don't care. It's the same like Sean Connery, Roger Moore. Of course, they're gonna go with the Bond girl. Whoever the Bond girl is gonna be, they're gonna be with. So, right, and Victor Mature was certainly of that standing way back. At that time, you know, this was the end of his career, really, and he was like this big, huge Arnold Schwarzenegger type movie star. So they built this movie around him, and the numbers say they were correct. It was a very good success. The Robe was about 4 million to make, and they brought in 40 million. Demetrius and the Gladiators, because they had all the sets, I assume, and they had, of course, lots of wardrobe already. Was 2 million to make, and they brought in 20 million. Now, any movie can be super ecstatic to bring in 10 times the result. So the outlay. So it was an absolute success. It's also on the list of the top, was it top 10 grossing movies of 1954, which really started off while I was rewatching it. So what is the premise, and why are we doing this? The Robe was a religious movie, but was it? No, it was a drama about a guy living in, or a very high-end guy living in a world that was unjust, and he didn't realize he actually had a conscience, you know.
And a crisis. So, he came to a crisis.
Yeah, and he had a crisis of conscience after having been ordered to, and having actually supervised the crucifixion of Jesus. And that's enough to put anyone in a crisis. So, when this movie starts, Demetrius is a devout Christian, which is defined in this movie, without actually saying it, but they say it sometimes, is like, okay, because some people will come up to you and say, oh, you're the Christian, right? Okay, so, you know, you're, so, you know, aren't you going to, yeah, how does he become a gladiator? Gosh, what was the first reason that they captured him? I forget. He becomes a gladiator because I forget the reason why he got captured, but hey, watch the movie. But the moment that they want to try him, they see that he has... his ear has had a ring in it. Sign of a slave. And so they don't believe him when he says he was freed by his owners. And they basically just give him to Claudius's household. How that works, I don't know. They're Romans. But he is thrown in with the gladiators there. And then, of course, he's like, I'm a Christian. I will not fight. I will not pick up the sword. I will not do it. And he goes in, and then what I really like is the character of Glycon. He is played by William Horace Marshall. He's an American actor, director, opera singer. And when he opens his mouth, ooh, it's very pretty. He has a very large role in this film. He is black. He is not on the movie poster. Maybe we can have the movie poster here. So, but at the end of the movie, 3 people walk towards the camera. Peter, Glycon, and Demetrius. Okay, sorry, spoiler, Demetrius doesn't die at the end of this movie. I don't think that you care about spoilers. You just want to hear what I think of this. Glycon comes up to him, and they put him in the ring almost like on the day that he becomes a gladiator. So he has had no time to learn how to fight in their style. And they show everything. They got Ernest Borgnine. He's like the head of the Gladiators. Everybody's doing like buff. The whole thing is about, let's get as many buff guys on the screen as we can possibly put in. Really, this is the reason for the movie. So, yes. So is it a religious movie? Oh, it's good to have plot. But it's definitely a gladiator movie. And so he says no, and Glycon says, let's just fight. Because being sent out there. Let's do the best fight we can, because sometimes the audience will let both guys live if they were very entertaining. So let's put up a good show. And turns out Demetrius can fight. Well, that's correct. I concluded this in the Robe, is that Demetrius actually comes from a similar background as Marcellus, who was like, one of the top dudes, the son of a senator, in Rome, and had all the education. Well, what's the education? It's going to be rhetoric, it's going to be history and mathematics, but it's also going to be fighting. And so it turns out he can fight very, very well. And they try to put on a show. Caligula is not amused because they see what they're doing. And Glycon says, fight me for real now. We're just going to have to go for it. And that's to the death. So the moment that Demetrius stands over Glycon, I would have to wonder why a trained gladiator actually loses against Demetrius. That is, of course, plot. But the trained gladiators should have won. But anyway, so he stands over him and he says, no, I'm not doing it. The whole audience goes like this. This, by the way, does not mean it's wrong in all of these movies. But we have established in Hollywood that this means they have to die. And this means they are going to live. Okay, fine. It's the other way around, but sure. This meant sheath your sword. And this meant use your sword. But anyways, niggly. Caligula says, okay, let the guy go. We'll bring in this is where we bring in the lions. He's going to fight the lions. Because basically he's forfeited his life by sparing somebody else's life in the arena. And that's where we get the lions. So,
gotta have lions.
And so it looks like he has no problems with killing lions. He just has problems with killing people. All sorts of shenanigans happened. He ends up in the household of Claudius. And I really didn't twig for like the first third or so of the movie that we're talking Claudius. Not just like a guy in a library with a wife who does whatever she pleases, and he's just like, okay, well, you will do whatever you please. This is actually Claudius. And at one point, Caligula walks in and he calls him uncle. And I was like, oh, wait. I am not that, I don't know the entire history by heart, but the peanut gallery does. But Claudius sitting there in the library is effectively, as I understand it, what he did.
Yes. Claudius was older than Caligula, of the same family, uncle, but he was physically disabled and therefore not put in any important function.
But Caligula goes to him pretty much every single time he needs to know something.
Because he is that much older and he is learned and he had a stutter and he had...
not in this movie.
Yeah. But in reality he had a lot of physical deformities that Romans didn't like, and so they tried to... But because he was part of the Claudian family, they couldn't completely sideline him, so they sidelined him to a library. And he wrote books... mostly, and yes, his lady
Messalina, played by Susan Hayward. So Claudius is being played by Barry Jones, and I immediately the voice I was like, I know this guy, so I had to think about it. But it's the guy from Brigadoon that isn't the minister but talks to everybody like in a sort of ministerial way. It's that guy, and you go, oh, it's such a good voice. And it's so like, oh, so cozy. And then he goes, Messalina, it's basically, yeah, you do what you want. Preferably don't go to bed with this, because she's taken Demetrius. She likes Demetrius. And it's just, please just don't, But if you will, you will. Several times Demetrius goes from being a gladiator to being a house slave servant, because he's now a slave, even though he was originally freed and he shouldn't be a slave. And then back into the arena, basically at the whim of Messalina. And Messalina wants him. He says no, because he says no, he's in love with Lucia. There's a scene where we've established that. And Lucia is a nice girl. Everybody's, what were they, potterers or something like that? So he was, it sounds like he was going to go to a potterer's life. I wrote it down somewhere. What was that? It wasn't carpentry, because that would be a little, but it was pottery, I think. And she's just, the nice girl there that likes him. He likes her. They're both Christians, and all is good, right? Well, specifically the people that he stays with are all Christians, until he gets snatched. And then when Messalina propositions him, as in, you're my personal attendant and you're gonna attend, right? And he's like, attend, haha. No, he's not going to attend. And then she throws him back into the in the gladiator pool. And then when she realizes that Lucia was smart enough to get herself in with the entertainment girls for the gladiators who are going to fight tomorrow, there's a whole plotline about that, because then you can have orgy. Okay, 1954 orgy. Orgy. A little bit of orgy. There's lots of food. There's lots of buff guys using dice, because that means it's illicit, right? Mm. And there's young women that are being thrown into led into the group, and after that it's just a lot of laughter behind the scenes. It's
all debauchery all off stage.
Yeah, debauchery, not much on stage. And there's a beautiful scene between them where you're actually getting the sense that they're starting to get comfortable with filming in CinemaScope rather than the 3x4, which I think is called letterbox. and then CinemaScope, and then there's a scene where they literally have 2 heads. They're getting closer to the people now, and got 2 heads of them. And I was like, okay, now you're getting it. But they needed 1 or 2 movies to actually realize, oh, we can use this space.
Yeah.
And it's okay to get a close on them. So you got a lot of many more close-ups than you got in the Robe. It's just technical, but it's still very nice to see. And then Messalina does some bad things, and
it's Messalina.
Yes, she's very good at that. She's like bitch central. And orders this or that, and one of the other gladiators grabs Lucia, who's a very young girl and very innocent, and she screams her head off, and then faints or dies. As far as Demetrius is concerned, she dies right there. And they said she's dead. Yeah, it's a very shocking scene, really. It's like, okay, yeah, that's hysterics. Oh, wait, no, it's hysterics because literally she killed it. It killed her. And he goes, I mean, if Victor Mature doing emotions, hey, we're here for it. It's great. It's sad. Yes, it's very sad. But the point is to get him back in the arena, of course. So he grabs the sword when it's his turn to go, and he does carnage. He was praying to God to let her live, and God did not comply. Looks like so he's lost his faith, and so this movie. I mean, he did an Anakin Skywalker walks into the school thing. That's what he did, only with big gladiators. I think it's 6 of them. And he kills them all. And I'd rather that than the Anakin Skywalker with the kids. But it's the same point. It's like he's lost his faith. And does that mean that you immediately start killing? Is that the message? Or is the message he is so distraught and the world is so unjust that he is going on a carnage rampage? Because if we think back to, he was already made to be a slave after his own family got killed, whether that was, well, certainly it was parents, but it may have also consisted of a wife, children, brothers, sisters, or whatnot. Lover, I don't know. So how much do you need to do to a person before you go nuts? And he's very strong, and he was given a sword, and they said, fight. Well, yes. So after that, Caligula likes him, because he likes people like that, and makes him puts him in his Praetorian Guard. Now, I'm not going to tell all of it, but the fact that he's in the Praetorian Guard is important because at the end of the movie, when there's yet another gladiatorial fight, the Praetorian Guard actually rise up to protect Demetrius, because by that time he's met Peter again. He goes on this is a really sad storyline, and it's done so very well, and it just the movie just keeps running you through parts of its plot, and it keeps on going. So it's not boring. It's just something about this movie that you just go, what did I just see, and do I really feel it all? And I don't know why that is, but so it's not a world-class movie, but it's very entertaining, and you just keep on going and going. And then he's found Lucia, and she's alive. And then there's Peter, and then they pray, and he finds his faith again. So is this and of course is again thrown into the arena for plot reasons. And when the Praetorian Guard, so I'm skipping to the end of the movie now, and the Praetorian Guard goes and protects Demetrius, they actually grab a spear and throw it at Claudius, because Claudius was telling them to kill Demetrius, I think. And they said, no, this is one of our guys. Because they weren't part of all of his experience of being a slave and all of this. They were part of, this is our brother in arms, who was a very good fighter. And for whatever reason, he's now in the arena. And okay, so he's a Christian. So what? So, and at that moment, when Caligula is killed, Claudius is right there, and they put the leafy crown, the laurel wreath, they put that on Claudius. And then I was like, now I understand why this connection with the Claudius household constantly. In the middle of the movie, when Demetrius just totally lost his faith and just thinks there's nothing in this world except for what you can get out of right now, he and Messalina go to their other estate, her estate somewhere, and live a life of sin for a very long time. And he has lots of fun. That wasn't terribly convincing. As much beefcake as Victor Mature is, he doesn't do debauchery terribly well. He's just still such a lovely, upstanding guy. So, just very beefcakey. So, yeah. I don't know. So, what is this movie? What is it trying to say? Are we a Gladiator movie? I think so. I think that is really what they wanted to say. Like, we're doing romance! Can we do Gladiators? The other thing is they had a religious message in this. You've got Peter, you've got losing your faith, you've got finding it back again. But Lucia had to be alive for that. So finding your faith back because she wasn't actually dead, is that faith?
And there's the story of wanting to get revenge on Caligula for the robe. In the movie makers want to get revenge on Caligula because of the robe.
Oh, it's like we need to see Caligula killed because he was such. And Caligula's storyline, he tries to get the robe. He puts Demetrius on when he's a Praetorian Guard. The whole movie, all he's trying to do is to get the robe, and he's nutso because once he gets the robe. Because of course Demetrius can get the robe for him. That's once Demetrius is it doesn't mean anything to him. But actually, by that time he was back on his feet. That was interesting. It's like he still gives him the robe, and then Caligula goes to his dungeon, the dungeon where he that was also in the robe. But they reused all the sets. It was great. Everybody looked great. It was beautiful. And he tells a centurion or so to kill a prisoner, and then he says something like "rise," and he holds the rope. It's like, well, at least you'd have to give the rope to the prisoner, the dead prisoner, right? It doesn't even make sense. And he's completely distraught that it didn't give him the power of making people come alive again. And then throughout the movie, Glycon becomes, as Demetrius rises up and down all this social ladder, Glycon becomes his personal bodyguard or something like that. He's in Demetrius's service and freed him. They do make a point of this, and Demetrius has a conversation with him when he is in his most debauched state, and Glycon's like, "It's not good, dude. Not good. Not doing a good job." He did it, of course, much better than that. But that was the message. It's like, I will serve you, but I will not condone what you're doing. And at the end, Glycon has the robe, and then they all walk off, leaving Claudius to take up the reins. And if you want to talk about Claudius,
no, I think because I have seen this movie way long ago, and roughly how Caligula was and how he came to an end is roughly correct to history. Okay. And then Claudius took up the reins because. Did they do the whole Praetorian Guard bit? Yeah. Yeah. And he was okay as a ruler, which was pretty new to them. That's an okay ruler.
What they said is that Caligula keeps starting to say, I am a god, and his underlings keep confirming that because they're too scared of being killed. So he gets worse and worse in that. And then when Claudius is given the Caesarean laurel wreath, he says, I will confirm right here that I am not a god, and I do not aspire to be one, and I will rule justly. And then Messalina's turn, which is interesting, they gave her actually a turn, which the Robe also gave Diana her turn when it was properly her turn. And they did that in this movie as well, which I thought was very good. And she said, I have not been a good wife, but I will be from now on, and I will be the emperor's wife as you expect one to be. And I thought that was so good.
It's too bad that the history books say something else.
Yeah! Too debauched to make into a film.
She got, she kept going, doing bad things, and Claudius didn't know, and then at some point he got informed, and then when she was sort of ordered to go commit suicide, she couldn't, she had to be helped.
Ooh.
Yeah,
no, that won't happen in this movie.
No. And Claudius wasn't very lucky with...
Yeah. And he's sort of like, is very now contented or like, he's just accepted that she is who she is, and she's going to do whatever she wants, and he has no power over her. Until this point. And she did live with Demetrius on her own pleasure, and everybody knew it. There's nothing Claudius could do about it. And if you think about that, he was actually physically somewhat disabled and certainly socially disabled because of a stutter, and probably the Romans probably didn't appreciate an intellectual. They had their Greek slaves for intellectuals.
They only appreciated intellectuality if it came with physical prowess.
Right.
And because he didn't have the physical prowess, his intellectual, it wasn't interesting. There were a couple of teachers who took him up, but was just there. And
the rest was probably self-taught, and he had a bookcase full of stuff. In the Robe, Marcellus' father, who is a senator, has a bookcase full of scrolls. But that's the only time you see something like that. And it was in the study, specifically in that room. Romans were, you walk about and you there's rhetoric and there's fighty. That's what you do.
And later, after this movie is done, when Claudius becomes emperor, he goes on a couple of campaigns to show that he is also physically prowess, at least in the greater army type. So he goes to he conquers in the British Isles, England, to show that.
Okay, I would say in this one he would be considered a bit too old to go do that. Oh, yeah, okay.
He was.
All right, no, then that's correct casting. I would say he's in his 50s.
Yeah. He probably would be in his 40s, but looking like he is in the 50s.
Yeah. One of the things that I found touching was that Demetrius, throughout the movie, is still mourning Marcellus and Diana. Now, he wouldn't have known Diana very well, but in the book he did. It would have known Diana just as well as Marcellus did. And in... I can assume that Philip Dunne read the book. So, because he had to make the Robe outfit, the film. And then he says he believes in nothing when he's confronted by Peter about, what are you doing here, living a life of debauchery? Why, where's your Christian fervor? And he says, I believe in nothing. He says, Marcellus, Stephen, James, Diana, and Lucia, they're all dead. And who are Stephen and James? I don't know Stephen and James. What where does that come from? So that's weird. Basically, I think Demetrius is a pinball in a pinball machine. Or he must have felt like that. That was really what I came away with from the movie. Not so much a religious argument or message, or even we want to do Gladiators. Although yes, they did Gladiators, but it's like, wow, this guy's just being thrown about by other people, and that is almost the same thing in the Robe, except that it happens much slower and he's much higher up the rung. Marcellus is. Demetrius is still a pinball. He was pinball then, still remains a pinball. Once with the Robe, Glycon and Demetrius and Peter walk away from the capital, I assume. There's beautiful pillars. I assume that's supposed to be the Forum Romanum or Claudius's new palace or whatever. And they walk away towards the camera at the end. I can assume that they're going to go out and become missionaries again. So after that, Demetrius could actually have a life. Lucia, fortunately, she's there. And not in that shot, but she's going to be in his life. So happy end for everybody. So the question is, what is it about losing your humanity because of being pinballed about, and then recovering your humanity? Is it about losing faith and recovering faith? As I said, I find it not a strong argument when Lucia isn't dead. I would say if he recovered his faith and then it turned out she was alive, that's yes. Same for humanity, probably. In the Robe specifically, it wasn't that Marcellus could make good on what he had done. He could never make good on that. He could never retract it. So, but he could find forgiveness in the people who loved, who loved Christianity, who loved Jesus and all of that. And that was, I think that was the first, feel of unconditional love in this world, in that world. Because it's just, even his father, he wasn't terribly loving, and his mother was just a non-entity. So, and for Demetrius, we just don't see the rest of his family. So he's just this lone guy that walks around and gets pinballed about. So that was really, that's how I found this film. Visually, it's absolutely still watchable. I had trouble finding a good version. My DVD was not a remastered anything. So I hope it's out there. It was a very famous film then, but people have heard of the Robe. I don't think they've heard of Demetrius and the Gladiators. So I don't think it endured. And I think it's worth a watch. Because, Victor Mature and Susan Hayward and J. Robinson as Caligula. And basically, that's all not small stuff. It's not small fry. And it's very, very well done. They made some adjustments for Susan Hayward for the outfits. Because they, it should fall, sort of like this shirt falls, it should fall downwards. It shouldn't be like contours around the midriff and stuff. And for her stuff, she always had a belt on, and she had stuff that made it more tightly form-fitting and things like that. And it was only her, because they did do, even the dancing girls in the debauchery scenes, they had pretty much what Roman women could be wearing. They probably wear a lot less, quite frankly, in a true debauching scene. I mean, why would they be wearing a top? But they were wearing tops. That's, yeah. I always thought they adjusted too much, but they stayed pretty close to what is fairly correct for Roman era. And I'm heartened to hear that they had the story with Caligula and Claudius was actually based on something. Because remember, this is fanfic. This is not written by Lloyd C. Douglas, who wrote the Robe. This is just the guy who wrote, this is the guy who wrote the screenplay for the Robe. Decided, hey, I'd like to do some more. I have ideas. Well, as fanfic writers always have ideas, of course. So he got to do like the mega fanfic. So that's cool. And that's my opinion, and I'm sticking to it.